All right, is everyone looking at my slideshow and not my other screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right, I'm gonna get started then. Welcome everyone. I'm Amanda Buddymeyer. I'm the new technical product manager for Torus, so I'll be leading the meeting today. And I've met many of you, but not everybody, so welcome. So hopping into the agenda, before I go down the agenda, I do want to point out on the bottom here, I have done attributions for all of the images I took from FreePic. So thank you, FreePic, for images. We're going to do some introductions for the Torus product team, who are all new since the last time we had a Torus community meeting, including me. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're planning on having this meeting moving forward, what the meeting's going to be for, the format, that sort of thing. We're going to then get a little bit, I'm not going to get too deeply into the roadmap today. I just don't have time, but we will be doing that in future meetings. But we're going to look a little bit at the roadmap, and mostly we're looking to understand how can members of the community request features or otherwise kind of have an impact on the roadmap. And what does that process look like? We're going to do a very brief sneak peek at Torus version 27, which is our current version. In our next meeting, is April 5th, and the scheduled release for Torus version 27 is April 9th. So it's pretty much going to be knock wood in the bag by then, and I will do a more full demo of version 27 in the next meeting, but I'm just going to talk about a couple of features you can expect in version 27. I'm really planning on leaving a lot of time for questions and discussion. So I've tried to keep my presentation, like if everything goes well, the part where I am like squawking at you will be less than 30 minutes, less than half the meeting. And then there's going to be plenty of time for people to have, questions, comments, concerns, discussions, that sort of thing. And I have a couple final odds and ends that will hit before we end the meeting. So there's our agenda. I'm going to jump right in with introductions and talk about the format of the meeting. So as I mentioned, then we on the product team are all new. I started at the very end of October, on October 30th, and our two UX designers, Jess and Preeti, started in January, so they're even newer than I am. So as a quick introduction of myself, hi, I'm Amanda Buddymeyer, technical product manager. I'm not actually going to go a ton into my background. I'm sure I can tell you all about it some other time when I'm not trying to keep my presentation short. But I'll give you an overview of what my job is. A lot of people aren't familiar with product management. So basically, I'm in charge of the Torus roadmap. And that extends kind of upstream of the roadmap, thinking about all of the different people and communities and priorities, and how do we kind of, turn this all of these different competing things into one, consolidated roadmap. And it's also thinking downstream of the roadmap, how do we go from this kind of high level idea of what we want to do to actually having something we can deliver to the software engineering team so that they can build what we've planned out. So that entire work stream is under my management. I would have a very difficult time doing this without my trusty UX designers, Jess and Preeti. Preeti, I believe, is not here. I just want to double check. Yeah. So Preeti actually got married in India last week, which is super exciting. And she's traveling back and will be working on Monday, probably very jet lagged. But we are very excited to welcome her to the team. And I'm going to ask Jess to do a bit of a introduction as well. So Jess, turn it over to you.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Jess. So as Amanda mentioned, one of the new UX designers for the Simon Initiative. And I got my master's at CMU in human computer interaction. So it's great to still kind of be here. And I will be focusing on doing, user research and design to keep Torus's usability at a good user experience and finding those user needs and kind of trying to accomplish our goals. So thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. That was a very good quick summary of what Jess and Preeti are going to be doing. So I'm really excited. I actually, when I came in, knowing that there wasn't really anyone who had the full-time responsibility of product management, and everyone at Torus is stretched really thin and is so passionate and just kind of making these heroic efforts um, to get things done. I was really impressed coming in at what had already been accomplished. And I'm so excited now that we have this product team focused on the Torus roadmap about what I think we can accomplish moving forward. So I do want to put out a general, just a message to everyone that we are going to be ramping up quite a bit of user experience research moving forward. Some of you have already participated in that, which is amazing. And if you're interested either in just in a generalized way, kind of sharing your experience using Torus and what you think some opportunities and pain points are, or if you have a specific interest in a specific area of Torus and you'd like to participate in research for that, please do reach out to us, and we'd love to hear from you. So next, I want to talk a little bit about how, now that I've taken over these Torus community meetings, how I envision these meetings are going to move forward. The general thrust of these meetings is going to be looking at the Torus roadmap, looking at upcoming releases, talking about topics of interest around that. So for instance, today we're talking about how you might make an impact on the roadmap if you have an idea of a feature, large or small, that you'd like to contribute. And if you have any other ideas of topics that you'd like to hear about, you can look on the OLI website and kind of see, I have a loose schedule of what we're going to be talking about, but that's very flexible. If you have something that you'd like to hear about from us, please do reach out and talk about it. And well, let me know about it so we can talk about it. I am in general going to try to keep the presentation part of this meeting short enough that we can have discussion. We want to get feedback from you as well, and not just have this be like my nightmare is a 60-minute meeting where someone just talks at me. So yeah, I want to hear back from you folks as well. And I also want to emphasize that this is our big tent meeting for Torus. This is our everyone who's a member of the broader Torus community is invited. So if you know someone who has an interest in Torus, who uses Torus, who you think might want to attend these meetings, you're welcome to just forward them the registration information. You can also let us know, and we'll add that person to the mailing list that gets the regular emails when the meetings are coming up. They are the first Friday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern time. Okay, so now I'm going to jump into roadmap and feature requests. And the place that I want to really start when we're thinking about this is the vision of where we're trying to go with Torus as a product. And the working vision I'm using right now, I'm borrowing the OLI motto that you will see actually in the bottom left of every slide. That is transforming higher education through the science of learning. And I think that's a really important idea for us all to keep in mind, that this is kind of the direction that we're all pulling in, that this is how we all understand Torus and how it's contributing to the educational technology space. And I think that a reason I think it's really important, well, one reason is if we think about where does a roadmap come from? I'm going to show you shortly the high-level Torus roadmap for 2024. And I think it's a valid question to say, well, where did that come from? How was that decision made? And I think that it's important that that's always rooted in that vision. What can we be doing as at OLI and as a broader community to push that vision forward? So what are the things we have to consider, and what are the things that help us to grow Torus in that direction? One thing to consider is just technical capabilities, both in terms of limitations of what can we fit in a particular release, but also in terms of opportunities as we're looking at, what technology is out there and is being used. Sometimes it's just a technology that is, becoming a thing in the software world. So something that we're hearing a lot of conversation around now is how is AI being included in educational technologies? Is that an opportunity? And we also see technologies that are specific to educational technologies, and those are definitely things that we're interested in leveraging if there's something that promotes that product vision. Another strong consideration here is user research, which is going to be led by Jess and Preeti, our UX designers. And that's just going out and across a really broad spectrum of our Torus users across many different communities and universities and other educational institutions. Who are the folks who are using Torus? How are they interacting with Torus? How do they want to interact with Torus? What are the pain points and the opportunities there? So that's something that that both contributes to the roadmap. So as we get our user research program up, what is coming out of that and what patterns are we seeing that are going to lead us into the roadmap? And that's also a really important part as we identify where are the places that we want to kind of zero in for a particular release. That's a really key part of saying, how do we go from that roadmap idea to what we're actually building and what we actually deliver to the software engineering team for a particular release. And the final part that is quite important is market and customer research. And this is really just a fancy way of saying, where does our money come from? Which in the case of Torus, it is a variety of different places from our home university, from grants, from customers, from students. And we really have to look broadly across those market opportunities and say, how are we going to keep this going? How are we going to afford, building out these technical capabilities? How are we going to do this user research so that we can keep moving things forward? But I think it's really easy looking at all of these different things to go off in different directions that aren't supporting our product vision. So it kind of comes back to that. Do we have a potential really big funder who wants to go in a particular direction, but it's not consistent with our product vision? Do we have a really cool technology that might look really flashy in Torus, but it's not consistent with our product vision? And it also works the other way. So I've interacted with users who've actually said to me, I don't think that I'm actually, I know that what I have to say isn't really that important in the grand scheme of things. And I think that a lot of times that's not accurate. If you're a user who's interacting with Torus in a way that's really consistent with our product vision, then that makes you an important part of putting together this roadmap, regardless of whether you're bringing in funding or regardless of what the technology is. All right. So as members of this community who can contribute to our roadmap, how do you actually do that? What if you have something, it could be really small up to a really big ask, something that's really, just a huge change to the application. How do you go about making an impact on our roadmap? And the first place I would start talking about that is with our Torus triage board. This is our single source of truth for every bug report and feature request across the Torus community. So I will say, if you have an idea in your head or in a spreadsheet somewhere or wherever it is, and it's not on this board, it's not being considered as part of the Torus roadmap. So it's important that, I mean, this is a public-facing board, so you can go and put, and I'm going to click into it in a minute. You can go and you can add a ticket at any point. You can see the tickets that are already there. We also see a lot of tickets that are put on here by OLI staff on behalf of members of the community. So we get a lot of tickets that are from Hal or Kim, Learning Engineering Team, myself, and ideally are referring back to who gave this feedback, so that when we're looking at it, we can actually reach out and talk to that person and get more information. So let me click in here. So you can see we have a bunch of these tickets. I don't really have the time today to do like an in-depth, here's how you use this board. Some aspects of this I think are fairly user-friendly, and some of them are not particularly user-friendly. So you can always reach out to me. And I'm guessing we probably will in the future have more of a demo of like going in and creating a ticket and following it through the process. That's just not going to happen today. But you can create a ticket. You can fill in the description, a summary. It's going to show, I'm not going to actually make one now, but it'll show up on this board. You can follow its status, so into being selected for development, in progress through to when it's actually released. So, you can actually, if you have an interest, keep track of where it is in the process. You're also going to see a lot of these tickets. This one doesn't have one yet, but we have this parent. We also call this in Jira, it's called an epic. And the way I think about this is if this triage board is a giant warehouse of ideas, this is the shelf in the warehouse that it goes on. So generally speaking, this epic or parent, it's going to correspond to an item that you can see on the roadmap. So you can go back and say, oh, this is where right now we're planning on taking a look at this. And when we come to that part of the roadmap, when we're working on that release, we can then look at all of the tickets that relate to that. So the example I'll use is scheduling and gating. That's something that we have on the roadmap for later this year. Everything that has to do with scheduling and gating is going to be filed under that. When we get to working on that, we'll look at all of these tickets. Hopefully that'll bring up different people who have made different suggestions. We can go out and reach out and talk to those people. We can do UX research to understand what are the priorities, and how is this going to get implemented for this release. And that does mean, there may end up being more items under this epic than we can actually fit in a release. So it's possible that you might have something here that is not going to make it into the release. And then it's great if your name is affiliated with this ticket, because we can actually reach out and say, hey, this didn't make it into the release, but here's what the plan is moving forward. This is what the next step is. So I do think it's important for folks to be aware of this board, to use this board, to check in on this board. But I also want to make the point that I am really encouraging members of the Torus community to not just be passive consumers of the roadmap. If it's something that you don't really care about that much, you're like, oh, this could be cool, I'll throw a ticket on the board and then whatever happens, happens, then fine. But if there's something that you actually really care about that you're not seeing on the roadmap or that you're not sure is going to get implemented, I would strongly encourage you to come and talk to me about it. There's an awful lot of things that are on the board. There's a lot of things on the roadmap. There's limited resources. And so even if your issue is quite important, it might just not, with our limited resources, it might not bubble to the top. So come and talk to me about how can we bubble it to the top? What do we need to do so that this can be something that gets built into that gets prioritized earlier in the roadmap? I can't guarantee you that that's going to happen, but we can definitely talk about what type of things can we think about, what type of things can we partner on to get that increased in priority. All right. I think that's mainly what I had to talk about with respect to that. So I'm going to move on to, one other thing is, so there's a link here in the presentation to the Torus triage board. I am not planning on putting a link to this on the OLI website for the pure reason that I do not want bots to start interacting with the Torus triage board. I'm not trying to hide it or be precious about it. All of you and everyone who's registered for this meeting is going to get a follow-up email after this and every Torus community meeting. And the link to this board will be in that email. We're also happy to just give you the link if you ask us for it, and in between then, if you have lost track of it. And you are more than welcome to pass this on to other folks. This is, again, it's a public-facing board. You don't have to have a login to get to it. It's really for any member of the Torus community to come in and put in a feature request, or if you notice a bug, you can put it there as well. And I think the last thing I have to say about it is this is not an emergency reporting system. I would hope that the situations where someone finds like a bug that is a really big deal that has to be looked at, or handled right away. Would hope that'd be pretty rare. But I would not recommend, if you do that, don't just like put something on this board and then hope for the best. Like we have a triage meeting where we look at this about every 2 weeks. So if it's something that needs to be looked at more quickly than that, then please do reach out and tell me or someone else at OLI about it. Don't just use the board for longer term things, or at least something that can wait a few weeks. Okay, so I'm going to give us a sneak peek at Torus version 27. I have a document here I'm going to link to that is a Torus roadmap document that I will post like a PDF version of this onto the OLI website. And again, when you get that follow-up email after the meeting, I'm going to have made some updates to the website. I'm going to have posted this there. I'll have the meeting recording. And you'll get the link to that triage board. That's all going to be in that follow-up email. But for now, I'm just going to show you the Miro version. Okay. So this is a very high-level Torus roadmap for December 2024. We have quarterly releases, so you can see we actually have a set release date for version 27. That's April 9th. And we do not yet have release dates for our other releases, but we have a general time frame of when they're happening. I'm not going to go into detail again into this document today. We will dig into this in more detail. And actually, the next time we do this meeting, then V27 is going to come off of this, and we'll have a V31 that will be our first quarter release for next year. So V27 is a little bit different in the sense that these are all things that are projected. We're doing our UX team is doing research on these things to figure out. Some of these are quite high level, so we haven't exactly fleshed out what that feature is going to look like yet. For V27, I'm actually just going to talk about a couple of things that have been built into V27, which is mostly done at this point as we approach this release date.
Amanda, can you just, I think some folks know this, but maybe clarify the group, the in-between releases, so folks kind of understand when you release in between semesters, it's a different type of release?
So that is something that we've historically done is that, we have a release here in July that's right before our fall release. We have a release in December that's right before our, we have a July release that's right before the fall semester, a December release that's right before the spring semester. And then these other ones are, our first quarter and third quarter do happen when most universities are in the middle of a semester. So historically, we've tried to focus on making changes that aren't going to be. We try to think about what's happening in, for classes that are in flight. We don't want to do things that are disruptive for classes that are happening. That said, I do generally agree with that. And for instance, we're making this really big difference to the student interface in our next release version 28. And I think it would be an absolutely awful idea if we did this in the like students started out a class with one interface, and then, potentially, depending on what happens in the class, then they end up the class in a different interface. Or that they just, wouldn't be able to take advantage of it. They wouldn't actually see this happen while their class is in flight. So I definitely think that there are features that we want to make sure are happening as much as possible between semesters. That said, given all of our partners and what they're, we have a number of different university partners. We have partners who aren't universities, so they're not following a semester schedule. I think that anytime we do a release, it's going to be in the middle of someone's class. So we generally try to think through this in a way that's going to be as least disruptive as possible. Is that what you were getting at, Kim?
Yeah, thanks. I just because sometimes I think, at least in the past, people might go, "Oh, well, 2.7, I don't feel like I see a lot," because sometimes there's a lot of back end stuff that's really important that's being done, but it's not necessarily something like someone goes, "Oh my God, I see all these changes," because a lot of UX changes that would be very different for a student mid-semester, right? If all of a sudden the whole where you went to look for something changed,
Mhm.
is a little different. And so I think was kind of clarifying, because that was something for me when I came out. I was like, well, how come I don't see anything big in this change? And I was like, well, this is the middle of the semester. So anyway.
I think that could be true to an extent. I also think that with version 27, we ended up doing a lot of little things instead of many big things, simply because one, our NG effort, which I'm not going to talk about a ton today, but also I came on in October, so things kind of it was not enough time. Like things got handed off to me without enough time, and we didn't have UX researchers yet. So we kind of focused on what are some key important things that we already have lined up, and what are some smaller changes that we can make too. But definitely, I agree with you that there's changes that we try not to make in the middle of a semester for our students. All right, where was I? Yeah, so I do have, I'm not really going to talk about version 28 today. This is just part of the larger document I'm making, but I do plan on, when you see this document, you're going to see some, a little bit more information about what you saw on the first slide. And in the case of V28, some of these things are planned out better than others. So we have a pretty decent idea for our next generation student interface, of what that's going to look like. We have, a pretty good idea for our social annotation feature of, that's still having some research done, but we have a general idea of what that's probably going to look like in the interface. I think that for our next meeting, when we talk about version 28 a bit more, then we're going to have more information about some of these other features, but we're still doing ongoing research. So I'm going to be updating the documents that are on the website probably once a month corresponding with the Torus community meeting, so that you get the latest snapshot of kind of what do we know about each of these upcoming releases. And in this version, just given time constraints, I only have a slide for version 28 and version 27, but I will be adding more information about the other versions here, 29 and 30, as we move forward. But the main thing I wanted to do is just give you a kind of a quick overview of some of the things that have been built into version 27. This is not nearly an exhaustive list. Again, I'm doing a demo on this for our next meeting on April 5th that will get more, and we'll also have some release documentation for version 27 at that time. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things. One big thing is a separation out of admin roles, if any of you are a Torus admin. So right now, if you're an admin, then you are like the highest level of admin, which means that you have the capability of doing some pretty disruptive things. And it's never been the case that someone has done something that I'm aware of anyway, that someone's done something awful as an admin, but there could be a pretty bad mistake there. And when Torus was a pretty small new application, then I think it was fine that we just had this one type of admin role, but it's grown to the point where we really need to divide this out. If you are an admin, you know that the admin functions are broken into content, account, and system. The way this is going to work is content admin is the lowest level. You can only do things that are in the content menu, having to do with, kind of accessing projects and whatnot. If you're an account admin, you can do all the content stuff and the account stuff in terms of creating accounts and whatnot. And then the system admins can do everything. And we're going to be pretty selective about who has that access. Most likely, if you are an admin right now, then when V27 comes out, you will be a content admin. We also have a number of UX improvements that we're making. I picked out 3 things here to list, but that's not nearly an exhaustive list. And these are things we hadn't really had our UX designers starting yet. And so we just kind of picked a number of things that people had asked for that were kind of smaller, but that we were hoping would make a bigger impact in terms of the authoring interface. And to Tim's earlier point, I think that at this point, making some changes to the authoring interface, especially because we do have some really major changes to the student interface coming up in our next release, that's kind of where the focus was in terms of user experience improvements. We've added content licensing that mirrors what we had in Echo, actually, in terms of being able to use a Creative Commons license or just kind of do your own if you're using some other type of licensing, which I know particularly some of our partners in other countries do. So up and through version 26, doing licensing in Torus was pretty clunky, but I think this is going to be an easier way of handling licensing and also doing licensing on projects that have remixing, so might have different licenses from different projects. And there's a number of other features that that I'm not listing here. I just kind of cherry picked a couple of them. For any of our friends from NASA Infiniscope, then I know that was a pretty clunky integration with Torus, and we're making that a bit easier. We're adding a feature where the discussion menu items disappears if there's no discussions. That I think is a good UX improvement. It's pretty confusing if that's there, but you don't have class discussions. The ability to clear a soft schedule, which was once the schedule was set, I know was not a great user experience before. We're making that easier if you just want to completely clear out that schedule. And a number of other things, again, that we'll get into more in our next meeting. This is just kind of a taste of some of the things that we've been doing. Back. So at this point, those were most of the things that I wanted to get through. At this point, I really want to open it up. I'm happy to go back to any of those artifacts or a previous slide. I want to hear what your questions and comments and concerns are about the Torus roadmap, our releases, or anything I just talked about. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Nobody. You're going to make me assume I did such a great presentation that there are no possible questions. Okay, thank you, Sandy. Sandy, you have a question?
Do you have a time frame as to when you'll have a more detailed roadmap?
So probably in the next couple of weeks, honestly. So this is just, I've been getting a lot of feedback from folks about just wanting to have some visibility. Like we have a roadmap that's in Jira, but you have to be able to log into Jira to see it. So I just wanted to get some of that top level stuff out of there. And at this point, for most of those items on the roadmap, the answer is we have some idea of what might be in that. And I will be writing up for, even releases, through the end of the year, what we do know. But a fair amount of what we're looking at now that we have a UX research team is actually having them do research to understand, again, if we're looking at scheduling and gating, what's the highest priority thing? I'm not going to come out and tell you that we're doing this, this, and this if it turns out that when they do the research, it turns that's not really the most important thing to fit into the release. So some of these things, if you're not seeing details, it's because we won't actually have details until closer to the release time. But there's definitely more detail than what I've put in these like 3 little slides that I'll be preparing into a more detailed document in the coming weeks.
So just FYI, David Schoenstein is putting together a survey to send out to instructors. I don't know if you already knew this, but I don't know if they want to include questions on that to, help with this research.
Jess, is that something that you folks have talked about in your Monday meeting?
I think they have ongoing instructor research, but I'm not sure if it aligned completely with what Preeti and I were doing, so nothing specifically talked about, but we are having a session soon to talk about all their previous insights. So
Have you guys talked about a survey at all?
no.
Okay. It might be a good idea to bring that up because if they are doing a survey, so is this just real chem instructors
Correct.
or
It is.
yeah,
Yeah, just real
okay.
count. And
Okay.
Kim, do you know when he was thinking about sending that out? I don't know if he had
Yeah,
I'm
you wanted to
thinking
send
of,
it out to early next week.
oh, that's soon. Okay. Is he gonna send us a copy to review before he sends
Yeah,
it
we can
out?
talk about this offline. I don't think that
Okay, yeah,
we need
sorry.
to hear
Yeah,
about this. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we're still, so there have been some ongoing UX research efforts that have been happening on the real-time side. We have, some outside firms we've been working with, and we had, since Preeti and Jess have started, then we've been working to get all of that synced up so that everyone's kind of read in on what's happening, and we have like one united UX research effort. But thank you,
Gotcha.
Sandy.
That makes sense. Sure.
But so just to, and I would invite anyone to contribute to this as well. So as I said, I'm going to be working in the coming weeks to have a bit of a more detailed UX, not UX, roadmap document. Some of the things, especially moving further, are going to be a little bit on the more vague side, and it might be more talking about like what types of questions are we asking as opposed to what are we building specifically. But I'd love to know from you, Sandy, and from the group broadly, what do you want to see in that? Like, what type of information do you want to see in that roadmap document?
Good question. I would need to think on that for a little bit. I think one of the kind of larger things we've discussed is, the analytics that the instructors will be seeing in the fall. So yeah, I'd like a better sense as to, what that's going to look like and what information we're providing for instructors. Just off the top of my mind, that is what's coming to me. So
So that's good. So I can tell you specifically what's going on with the instructor analytics, which is Preeti's top priority. Preeti, as I said, Preeti just got married, so she's been kind of working here and there around her wedding, but she has been like she was not able to be at that meeting that we had on that topic. But she's been reviewing everything and kind of preparing so that when she's back next week, she can hit the ground running on it. And essentially what I would be putting in a roadmap document is, again, I'm not going to be able to say yet what specifically is going to be in version 28 in terms of instructor analytics. The detail I can put there is to explain exactly what I'm saying now. Preeti's working on it. This is the time frame. She's reaching out and talking to instructors. And if you'd like to be involved in that effort, reach out so that if you're someone who says, oh, I'm an instructor, I want to, have an idea of what I want to see, that you can reach out to us and say, I want to be involved in user research for that.
will we have a follow-up meeting on that at any point before those
We
decisions
definitely
get
will
made?
have.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
would
I think that we
better.
will. I mean, for one thing,
Okay.
Kim wasn't in that meeting because she was on vacation.
Oh, right,
So
right.
actually, just yesterday, Preeti and I were talking about how when she comes back, she needs to talk to Kim, and that we probably are going to have meetings around, for all of these things as we get a better idea of what the features are going to look like. Then we're going to have to kind of iterate through, like, here's where things stand in terms of research and design on this feature. I think that how that's going to be reflected out to the broader community is, again, we're just doing monthly updates on the documents. So what I write up in terms of what's going on with, instructor analytics right now is going to be hopefully different than what I write up for a month from now, of maybe being able to say, in a little bit more detail of what's getting built out.
That makes sense. Thank you.
There's
So you
a,
got
oh, I was just gonna tell you the suggestion in the chat.
Yeah,
intended
just-
audience reach feature, author, instructor, student. Yeah, I definitely think that that's useful, Caitlin. And in some cases, it's more than one, or it's more generalized, but we can definitely call that out.
Yeah, but I mean, like, NG23 is mainly going to impact students for sale.
Students.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's the detail I want. Just like you can say like all three, but like those are general buckets,
Jessica Swan says, I can connect you with all K-12 educators that will happily provide insight and feedback. That's definitely good to know. And I also want to let you know, Jessica, that we are, this is actually something that Preeti's been organizing. So we had a little bit of a pause while she was getting married, but we have a list from Ariel of all of the ETX stakeholders, and we've kind of been going through to meet, so myself, Jess, and Preeti to meet with those stakeholders and kind of get to know who they are. And you are on that list, so we're going to be coming to meet with you soon. I would broadly say for anyone in the community, if you haven't met or had a meeting with me and the UX designers, and you would like us to kind of know who you are, we definitely want to know who you are too. So reach out and say, hey, can we set up an intro meeting? We'd love to understand, who you are in the community, what your interests are, and kind of have you on our radar as we're, we're all new here and we're kind of getting acclimated. So please do reach out. Does anyone have any? So we were kind of talking about how the roadmap is going to look, and how that's going to work in terms of communicating out month by month. Does anyone have any other feedback of something they want to make sure that they see in that document, or something that, or questions about how that's going to work? Okay. Any other topics? Other questions, concerns? Do you want me to go back and look at that roadmap document, or look at the triage board, if anyone has any questions about that? Anything else we talked about? All right. Then I guess we can end the meeting early. I probably should have talked to you longer. That's what I take it to mean. Or I should have brought up some more controversial topics to spur the conversation. But thank you for joining, everyone. And as I mentioned, I have a final slide that I will share. It is this. So I just wanted to make sure I go over our follow-up meeting. Our next meeting is going to be on April 5th. So the version 27 release is scheduled for April 9th. So at that point, it should ideally pretty much be in the bag, and we can do a demo and kind of talk about what's going to be coming out with that release. I'll be updating information on the OLI website. And I will be doing an update like this after every Torus community meeting, so that we get more in-depth roadmap documentation that kind of gets updated as we go. And when I send out that follow-up email, it will also include a link to the Torus triage board if you want to put any feature requests or bug reports there, or just see what else is on the board. So thank you, everybody. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda. And you said you were sending that deck in the follow-up email, right?
I wasn't planning on it, but I can if you want it.
Well, it just had a bunch of links. I know you were sending the links, so maybe
The
easy
link,
to.
you will have the links to whatever you need.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Just sending the deck has the links in it could save you time from pulling them out. That's all.
I'm putting them on the web so that it's more accessible to folks anyway. So
Okay, cool. All right, thank you.
I
Bye.
Oh, Jessica, do you have a list of upcoming features written in layman's terms? So I will say that sometimes to me, understanding layman's terms is not, sometimes I try to put things in layman terms and they're not. So I will put out documents for the roadmap. And if there's something that's confusing in there, let me know so that I can actually, um, make sure it's in a language that is accessible to people who are not in software or just not ensconced in Torus development every day. Thanks. All right, have a good one.